Hi everyone, my name is Betsy Miller and I'm an herbalist with Frontier Co-op, and today I'm going to be talking about making water-based preparations with herbs, also known as herbal infusions, herbal decoctions, herbal cold infusions. Fun little fact that if we say tea, technically speaking, we are just talking about preparations made with one plant, Camellia sinensis, the green tea, black tea, oolong tea, pu'er. All tea, technically speaking, is made with just that single Camellia sinensis plant. Everything else made with our wonderful herbs technically should be called herbal infusions or herbal tisanes, herbal decoctions. That being said, I often use the words tisanes and teas interchangeably. It's just a fun little fact that I like to share. So when we are making herbal infusions or decoctions, we are using water as our solvent. A solvent is any liquid that we use to extract the properties that we want from plants. Water has a few wonderful benefits as a solvent. Number one, for most people, it is easily accessible and very affordable. Number two, water is the universal solvent, so it extracts a wide array of the properties that we want from our herbs. Carbohydrates, bitters and aromatic bitters, flavonoids, minerals, all of those constituents are readily extracted into water. And number three, just the meditative process of making an herbal infusion or a decoction, allowing our water to boil, watching our herbs steep. It reminds me to slow down my day a little bit. Even just drinking the tea while I do my deep breathing reminds me to slow down my day and just focus on my own self-care and calm and quiet. Water as a solvent only has a couple of drawbacks. Number one being the shelf life of our herbal preparations. Water-based preparations, when we make an herbal infusion or decoction, really only last for about 3 days when stored well in the fridge, compared to a tincture, for example, that can last for years. So water doesn't have the shelf life that we see with some of our other solvents. Number two is that for some herbs, depending on the person, drinking them as a tea may not be very enjoyable because of the taste. So for example, hops. I love how hops feel in my body. I cannot stand how they taste as a tea. So I will only take hops as a tincture. I'm the same about valerian root. I cannot handle valerian root as a tea, but as a tincture, I can take it and get it over with. Compared to other herbs like linden or rose hips, I adore as a tea, and those ones I'll prioritize as a tea. So water is for most herbs and people a wonderful solvent that creates a very enjoyable final product for just sipping and enjoying and really being able to take in the properties that we want from plants. So when we're making water-based preparations, we're typically making one of three things. We're making a hot infusion, a decoction, or a cold infusion. To make an herbal hot infusion, which we recommend for the aerial parts of plants, meaning above ground parts, so leaves and flowers, as well as aromatic roots. So aromatic roots mean roots that have a lot of volatile oils in them, like valerian. I'll get to the concept of decoction next, but we don't want to expose aromatic plants to an extended amount of heat because it can compromise those heat-sensitive constituents, the volatile oils. So herbs, the aromatic roots like valerian, do best as an infusion rather than a decoction like most roots. So to make a hot infusion, we simply add our herbs to our infusing vessel. I love my little teapot here. I think good stoneware just makes tea even more fun. I'm doing my favorite blend of herbs, which is oat straw, linden, hibiscus, skullcap, and orange peel. It just makes me happy. And then we are going to pour our hot water on top. And we're gonna let that infuse for about 15 to 30 minutes. It's the recommended time for herbal infusions. You can let it go longer. I typically don't let it go shorter because again, we wanna give it time to extract everything that we're hoping to get from our plants. Once it's ready, you can just, depending on if you have a teapot with a little filter in it, just pour it into your cup and enjoy, strain it through a tea strainer. And the amount that you're going to use of each plant is really dependent on the plant itself. There's no set amount of herbs you should be using for your infusions. For decoctions, We recommend decoctions for the hard and woody parts of plants. So roots, barks, and berries, the exception being the aromatic roots that we do for our infusions. The reason for that is the tough parts of plants, those roots, barks, and berries, they really need extended cooking time in order to get a good extraction. So for a decoction, you're gonna have a pot on the stove and you add your water and your herbs to the pot, bring that water and herbs to a boil. Make sure a lid is on. I should have said that about the infusion as well. We want to make sure that we're keeping it covered so that we're not losing any of those aromatic compounds in the steam. We're going to keep a lid on our decoction and then we let it simmer. So we bring it to a boil and then bring it down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 30 to 60 minutes. And then we let it cool, take it off the heat, let it cool for about another 10 to 15 minutes. And that creates a very good extraction of those hard, woody parts of the plants that they just don't extract as well sitting in water. Even if it's hot, they need that constant roiling heat in order to get a good extraction. Lastly, we have cold infusions. I love making cold infusions, especially in the summer, because they're so simple. My favorite way to make a cold infusion is a French press. So for a cold infusion, what we would do is add our herbs to, it can be a jar, a French press, even a teapot, and actually pour cold water on top. And the difference between a hot infusion and a cold infusion, simply besides the temperature of the water, is the amount of time that we let it steep. So a cold infusion, we let steep around 6 to 8 hours. I love to make them at night, let them steep overnight, and then just press them out in the morning and my tea is ready to go. So cold infusions are actually my favorite for aromatic rich herbs like peppermint and catnip, lavender, even chamomile. Herbs that have a very high volatile oil content because those volatile oils are heat sensitive. And we get a really good extraction of volatile oils in cold water because the heat doesn't damage or change those constituents. I also love cold water extractions for mucilage-rich plants like marshmallow root or slippery elm. Because the cold water, again, protects the integrity of that mucilage and allows for a better extraction. And again, after about 6 to 8 hours, your cold infusion is ready and you just strain it out and pour and you're good to go. So water-based preparations are one of my favorite ways to enjoy all the properties of plants. And we'll also be learning in the future about alcohol-based extractions, oil-based extractions, all of our wonderful solvents that we can use to extract the properties that we want from plants.